Welcome to Launch University. This week we're going to talk about customer validation and getting in to ask the right questions to get to know your customers. I'm Eric Ralston, co-founder and futurist at Fuse, and I will be your host for this magical mystery tour of Launch University. This is a companion video to the 5-part, 5-week Launch University live course where all of the information exposition will be captured in these beautiful videos to get you some basics to get started, and then live workshop sessions will enable you to go even further. This week, we're talking about customer validation. And by customer validation, I mean measuring demand for a prospective product or service, testing your offering before it even exists, ideally, or how we can improve it over time if it already does exist. And foundationally asking the question, who is my customer? This week, we're really talking about how do you get to know your customer? What are the key techniques for that? Basically, it boils down to get out of the building. The slogan of the Lean Startup by Eric Ries. He spells his name wrong, but I really like him. Get out of the building basically captures that notion of you can only think like you. And whatever thoughts you're having are likely not experienced. They're likely assumptions. And you need to go find potential customers and you need to ask them questions. Why would you ask them those questions? The key reasoning would be to get to know them and to cluster them in some way. And when I say cluster them by traits, it would be both the demographics, which controls things like, the age, the gender, the region, the education. So I would, trying to reach women in the Pacific Northwest who have college degrees with your offering, that's handy. That's handy targeting. But what's even better and more important, relating to, particularly as we move forward in the course, is psychographics. So psychographics are sort of the personality dimension. What are the activities, opinions, values, and influences that someone has that guides them on their choices for offerings in the world? And the sort of position and sociological identity plus the personality and tendencies makes it so you'll have a complete reckoning of who they are. Now, how do you get there? Well, step one would be to sit down and talk to them. I know. Very original advice here on Launch University. Very original. There are two ways of going about it. There is the one-on-one interview, which builds qualitative understanding of a customer's wants and needs. I say qualitative because it is a guided conversation. You're going to get something that's fairly subjective out of an interview. Hopefully something that's fairly actionable, though, because there will be insights that you get out of an interview that you're able to draw out of someone, get many layers deep, that you wouldn't be able to get out of a survey. A little bit of those in a minute. Right now, I would avoid focus groups, though. So a focus group would be a group of people gathered around for you to do sort of a group interview. The problem with that is, unless you're a trained facilitator for focus groups, which do exist, that is a job. It's a job for a reason. It's basically really hard to prevent the groupthink phenomenon, and all you're going to get is one loud voice and then a bunch of echoes. Right now, you don't want that. Right now, you want many independent people approached separately who will then give you unique, distinct, and testable feedback. Next would be surveys. Surveys are one-to-many inquiry to gather statistics and comments. You can particularly get numbers and yes-no answers, and you can pre-qualify audiences this way. These would be things that you send out on, for instance, SurveyMonkey or Google Forms. They are quick, interactive experiences. It takes 60 seconds or less to gather a lot of feedback. Now, during both of these processes, and they're related, that's why we're generating them together, but they are separate. During both of these processes, you're going to ask two types of questions. Open questions, which you can ask a lot of in interviews, which are questions that demand them tell some sort of narrative to answer them. So generally something that starts with why, how, or what. So why, or I'd say how might we? How might we? MHW, that's one of the key design thinking prompt questions when you're doing constructive pre-formatted brainstorming. It's a very powerful question. And what do you do now? And then what would you like to do? And then sort of what and how would you pay? This can be very important for any business model beyond I offer a widget and they give me money. You're going to have to understand something perhaps unique about how they pay for it or how they go about giving you money for your hard work. These open questions are offset by the notion of a closed question. So a closed question is a question that can be answered with a yes or no, a number, or one of a set of choices. Good, for instance, would be how often do you? So how often would you likely use this? I would say is maybe more likely. And they can give you a number of hours a week or a number of times a day or things like that. How much money would you spend? So an open question would be good about how do you pay for it, as in what is your preferred process. Survey would be really good for pricing it, just trying to figure out people want it for $20. Awesome, let's do this. And then also how much time. So keep in mind that your value proposition, which we'll talk about a little bit during class, your value proposition can be woven into your question, and proving your assumed value proposition is also part of doing a good interview or survey. I would encourage you to open up your exercise book for customer validation this week, and we're going to write down 10 questions and 10 names to start interviewing and surveying. So we're going to jump into the guide now. So this is the customer validation guide. It is all about challenging assumptions and measuring possibility. There are multiple exercises in here, some of which we do in these companion videos and some of which we do in class. And first off, customer types. You're supposed to do customer types first. So let me take one moment to say you might have different interviews or surveys for your different customer types. And I would actually say that this early on, you should prioritize them. So you're doing this interview or survey for one of your customer types. I'm betting the user, because that's where you probably have to start. It's not cheating for me to tell you that. And then you'll basically proceed down, probably in the order, almost like in the order of the customer types. It's weird, in my opinion. You don't have to. It's just my opinion. So personas, spoiler alert, and surveys. So surveys gives us that framework for asking good questions. And I want you to really think about, particularly when you're doing the interviews, because the interviews might actually be the most important one out of the gate. You're going to approach people, reach out to them on LinkedIn or social media. You're going to get them on the phone. You're going to get them on Zoom. You're going to get them on the street. And you're going to ask them questions, particularly around the pains, blockers, constraints. So what's hurting, what's preventing them from taking action? And then if they were to undertake an action, what would be their limitations on that action? And then also the gains, goals, and possibilities. So those are the positives. So gains would be going from, it's probably not 0 to 60. It's probably 55 to 65, if you're being honest. And then the goals, which would be things that could replace elements in their life. And then the possibilities. So we call it art of the possible in technology. This would be the freewheeling, open-ended concepts maybe you could ask them about. And then the always yes and always and never knows. These are more so qualifying questions. So if you don't have a baseline if you ask them a question and you ask them, how many times a week do you do this? And they say 0. It's probably not that you have a bad product. It's that you might not have the right person for this offering. So think about that. And then finally, what open-ended questions force them to really say their needs and roadblocks? So that's really up to you to try to figure out what are the needs and roadblocks? How can I overcome them? I jumped to the next sheet. Sorry. And then finally, we have a list of names. Avoid family and close friends. Those are yes people, as we call it in the biz. You do not want to ask your mom whether or not your offering is a good idea. She's probably going to say yes. What you do want to do is reach out to, say, professional acquaintances, friends of friends, and members of friendly organizations. So your house of worship, professional networks, perhaps Fuse, and try to get a hold of people who are in the industry that you're hoping to sell to, hopefully, or in the market that you're hoping to sell to. This will make it so they give you friendly but critical feedback, and you can hopefully find enough to keep moving forward. With that is the survey exercise. Hopefully you can figure out 10 questions that you could use in a survey and or interview. And then, this is the really hard part, I want you to go do that right now. Just stop what you're doing. Pause the video. Don't even stop the video. Don't wait for it to end. Pause the video. And reach out to those people. Try to get at least 10 minutes of time with each of them talking about the foundational offering. And I know you can do this. All right? This is the beginning of you building your business. This is happening. Go do it right now. Thank you for joining us. This has been Customer Validation, talking about surveys and interviews, an important step on getting out there and getting to know who needs your offering and who you can measure to find out. If you enjoyed this, I would recommend you check out Testing Business Ideas, which is by the folks here at Strategizer. This is a big inspiration for the entire Launch University course. This one in particular, there's dozens of things in these pages of different ideas for you to test. How you could go about testing your idea is up to you. But thank you very much. Hope to see you in class, and have a great day.